War has arrived in Ukraine and civilians are running for their lives. Traditional evacuation protocol during wartime prioritizes women, children, and the elderly.
Man, these people left without taking the blacks.
But as Russia continues its advance in Ukraine, racism is not far behind. Twitter, where many African students in Ukraine have been documenting their journey westwards, has been awash with videos and tweets of reported racism.
The black girl go, they are pushing her, they're not letting her go, is it right?
In this video, a black woman is seen being denied boarding onto a train believed to be evacuating civilians in Ukraine away from the advance of Russia from the east. No verbal reason is given for the denial, but moments later, a white woman is allowed to board the same train. This Twitter user, named Inze Kiev, believed to be a Nigerian international student, says priority boarding on trains along racial lines is common. His Twitter feed has documented his journey from Ukraine onwards to Poland. According to his accounts, the crowds of people who have braved cold weather, queues, and journeys full of fear to make it to Ukraine's border with Poland have been racially discriminated against in a series of events, which include a van being driven into the direction of the crowd and a gun being drawn on them.
We are students! We are students! We are dying! We are dying of cold! We are dying of cold! We are dying of cold! Everybody go down!
However, on the Poland side of the border, there's been a suggested decline in reports of racism from civilians.
These are the black community. They are not allowing any black people to enter inside the gates.
But it is important to note that complaints are predominantly from civilians still in Ukraine. Mainstream media has also shown itself to be an example of the role race and unconscious racism plays in the coverage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the racialized depictions of the victims therein.
It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles.
But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm loath to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
But what role does geography play in this? A 13-year Harvard University study titled Project Implicit found that many people in Central and Eastern Europe associate negative thoughts with black faces. According to this map, which illustrates the findings of that study, redder countries, including Ukraine and Russia, show higher average racial bias, which is reflective of the recent reports of racism from the black civilians there. Online debates in this matter have denied reports of racism, arguing a country's own nationals are expected to be prioritized during emergency evacuations. Ukrainian men aged between 18 and 60 years old, for example, are reportedly not allowed to leave. But in and among the confusion and uncertainty, few things are clear. Victimhood is not dependent on race. Race is not a measure of civilization. But according to the accounts, in among the guns, missiles and tanks, even during war, race is still a weapon. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News.
Nobody's asking any questions.